All right, everybody, can you hear me? Good. Well, this is Robert Green with Kootenai Law Group, and welcome to our second episode of what's being called Lawyers in Pajamas. We'll see if that name holds true later at the end of our call, but this is an opportunity for the three of us, the attorneys of Kootenai Law Group, to talk to each other, kind of a recap of how the week's been under pandemic circumstances, and we found it interesting to record these and let people listen to them, and it might trigger some questions that people have coming up for them in terms of legal issues and the types of things that we're dealing with for our clients. So if we can be useful to anybody, we hope these meetings, watching us discuss what otherwise is probably really boring stuff, might be somewhat interesting and useful for people at this point. So Jason, how are you doing this week?
Good. Enjoying the sunshine for sure. I know my family is feeling a little bit cooped up, and so even if it's a little getting out there and running around the deck and everything has been very, very nice. And I've noticed that my kiddo, he doesn't mind the cold at all. He just wants to be outside.
He doesn't care. Oh, that's great. Did you guys hunt for some eggs yesterday?
We did. And my son got more than me.
As it should be. How about you, Corey?
Yeah, a lot of the same. Enjoying the sunshine and getting out playing a little baseball and doing something different.
Yeah.
And enjoyed the Easter. Found some eggs. Unfortunately, the dogs found a few before us, but
my dog did the same thing. We had two out in the backyard area, and yeah, they were gone. They were demolished.
Yeah, that's about right.
Awesome. Well, how was last week for you guys in terms of I can't even count now. What is this, week 4, week 5 of us officially having the office closed and trying to do everything that we possibly can remotely? I was in the office myself probably at least 4 times last week helping clients with signing documents, and as you guys know, we're doing that mainly car side at this point. So we're running documents out to people with gloves on and disinfecting everything that we take out to them. And so far, so good. Again, I've dodged all the bad weather on the days that I've done these. And so I know that that's going to be an issue at some point, but people seem really amenable to it. It's working pretty well. It's obviously a bit strange. It feels weird compared to what we're used to, but I think it's going well for people.
Yeah, I think I've had a good experience with it. Just kind of setting up a meeting maybe after we draft the docs, emailing them to them, and then talking through it on the phone.
Yeah.
I think making everybody feel just as comfortable as coming in.
Yeah.
I guess the only new one I had last week was at the nursing home. I think that's still kind of a tricky situation, especially when there are not notaries staffed by the nursing home,
right,
and or assisted living facility, which this was just that kind of assisted living. No one could kind of come in or out,
yeah,
and have a notary. So we did he came to kind of external room, and I just looked at him through the glass, and we talked on the phone.
Yeah.
With his ID, and we just kind of did it that way, which actually worked really well.
Good. Yeah.
Was it awkward standing in the bushes outside the window?
Exactly. It was a little bit, yeah. And then, yeah, the documents, fed under the door. But other than that, it went really well. So.
Yeah, law school definitely didn't prepare us for pandemic circumstances, but we're making our way through it for sure, like everybody is. Well, good. Any interesting legal issues come up for anybody this week, or are you hearing any particular types of questions from clients?
I had some really good questions from clients and things that we're still kind of working through, but something for any business owner to look at. I know there's a lot of uncertainty with, what is an essential business, and kind of going through the states that I'm licensed in, Washington and Idaho. and what those definitions are. And I was kind of diving in because it seems like this business would fit one of those general categories, but they use some very specific phrasing. And so I was just trying to research that term to see if that had been defined. And that term is not defined in any other statute or case that I could find upon my initial research. So it just emphasized how much uncertainty this creates. And then, of course, if you, the state agencies and federal agencies have been.
Oh, we lost
So
you. You paused there for a second, Jason. Last thing I heard was state and federal agencies.
Yeah, so I mean, they're doing good, I think, at communicating with business owners when you get through to them. But then if you ask them, well, am I an essential business?
Yeah.
They can't answer that question. That's a legal question. And so that's just something for people to know. If you have a question about that, you really need to call an attorney that can help walk you through that process. And then the other question I had that I thought was really good, and obviously we're not insurance agents or anything like that, but I had clients relay information about what they were looking at as far as services that they're providing during the pandemic, and just making sure that they have adequate liability coverage depending on what type of business they're in. So that's another good idea too.
Yeah.
Just a great time to evaluate a lot of things about your business.
Sure. Yeah, understanding what your insurance would cover and what it wouldn't is really important. I'm hearing, these questions are probably winding up hitting your guys' desks or laptops, as it may be, more than mine on the business side of things. But, lots of people are, of course, interested in contracts and what happens if I can't fulfill the obligations under a contract. And one of the first things that I think people should do, and I spoke about this a little bit last week, is just not be afraid, if you haven't already, to have conversations with the other side of that contract. So if it's a lease, talk to your landlord, find out what their position is. A fair number of commercial landlords right now with commercial tenants are in the same boat that the tenants are in. So, on the one hand, they typically can understand exactly what's happening. They understand the cash flow problems that would render a business unable to make a rent payment or lease payment. At the same time, their businesses too, so they have those same problems. So they're no doubt not reaching out to their tenants saying, hey, don't worry about paying. But if you reach out to them, you may be able to work things out without having to get to the point of reviewing your lease contract with an attorney or that sort of thing. But certainly don't be afraid to do so if you feel like you need to. If those conversations aren't leading anywhere, you should reach out and find out what your rights are and that sort of thing. But I've found that most people that I'm hearing from are finding that just having conversations with, whether it's their vendors, their landlord, whoever, is helpful, because everybody can at least figure out what page everybody else is on. And there are varying degrees of views on when this is all going to be over at this point. Some people expect by the end of this month everything will be back to normal. I'm sort of suspicious that it won't be. It would be wonderful to be proven wrong about that, though. So, I think that's the other thing to think about, is when you're talking to people, you may have a different viewpoint of how long all of this is going to be crazy than the person you're talking to. And it's something to have in mind, and something to sort of evaluate those conversations in terms of, okay, well, I view this as a potential problem for the next 6 months at least. And the person I'm talking to views it as it's all going to be over in the next 2 weeks. And so there may be a disconnect as you have those conversations, but they're still worth having. Any interesting stuff on the tax side of things, Corey?
Well, there is the different relief available, the 7A loans that can be converted into grants. There's
right.
The $10,000 grant that you can apply for. I guess the other timely news is the first of the stimulus checks went out this weekend.
Right.
Saturday, and I believe they are aiming to get all of them out by Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if you have filed a tax return and that information is accurate, then you should be fine and good to go. If you don't file a tax return or the last one you filed doesn't have accurate information, then there is a portal open now on irs.gov/coronavirus.
Okay.
And you can go in there and you can update your information, either change your address information, or if you are like a retired person who just has Social Security and doesn't have a filing requirement, then there's a place where you can drop in your info there.
Sure. Corey, any idea on somebody who's in a situation where they're in arrears with the IRS or just haven't filed for a while, and I've sort of done the stick my head in the sand and hope the IRS goes away thing, which we all know doesn't work. But if they were to use that portal to update information, do we have any ideas on whether that triggers any consequences for them other than them hopefully receiving a stimulus check?
Right. And I think that's a good point. For the non-filer status, I don't think that's going to affect anything other than the information that's already in the system and going to be generated whether or not you do this.
Yeah.
That'd be more the 1099s and the W-2s that have been reported and not picked up. But other than that, I believe if you have a current debt with the IRS, even have a lien, the IRS even has a lien related to that debt, that they are still sending out, bypassing that and sending out your stimulus. Okay. So I think that is a nice part, because there would be so many people that maybe having a tough time and then get no benefit from this kind of whatsoever. Since those payments are kind of withheld for the next couple of months anyways, I think that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey, do you think this is a good time if you were considering trying to clean up your tax situation, if you hadn't filed for a while, if you're investigating offer and compromise and those sorts of traditional programs? This is a good time to initiate that sort of thing, or should people sort of wait it out and let things settle down?
I don't know that you're going to get very far if you want to initiate like an offer and compromise right now.
Right.
I think you kind of like other things, you can get your place in line.
Yeah.
But I think they're pretty busy on other things. So I know I have a couple clients of which who do have tax debts they've been working on, have payment plans together, or are aiming to do an offer and compromise that kind of got delayed because of this.
Yeah.
And they're in the position where they kind of have a set expenses, set income with Social Security, whatever it is, and don't really have a huge need for the money necessarily because their income hasn't been affected by all of what's going on. So they are more leaning towards the side of, well, great, I can use the stimulus money to put a big chunk in my tax debt.
Yeah.
And then when it does come back online, I have a lower payment plan option, or a much better opportunity to do something else with it.
Oh, smart. Yeah. I know that one of the things that I think people have been concerned about is the other programs, the Paycheck Protection Program and the larger loan programs for small businesses. Obviously, people are getting all sorts of different answers about when those loans might be approved, when they might see money. Everyone's very frustrated by that process. No doubt bank and loan officers are at the top of the list in terms of who's frustrated. I guess people hopefully can take some comfort in the fact that we're all in the same boat on that, but it is frustrating for sure. And so we feel for everybody who's going through that process right now. Dealing with the Treasury Department and the federal government in general can be very difficult. Right now, they're obviously overwhelmed. A lot of those departments were somewhat understaffed when all of this started. So there are definitely issues, but hopefully things will continue to get resolved. One issue that I have seen come up a couple of times though, especially with the Paycheck Protection Program, is definitions of employees versus independent contractors. And throughout my legal career in advising people, I've found that almost nobody knows what the law actually is on that. Except for employment law attorneys and business law attorneys. and obviously there are exceptions. There are businesses that have had to deal with that a lot, and so they really understand it. But a lot of the smaller businesses that are applying for these loans use independent contractors, and may not realize that they're independent contractors, or use employees that they don't realize are employees, and it actually shouldn't be referred to as independent contractors. People have questions about that, you should definitely reach out to an attorney, because an attorney can typically help you figure that out pretty quickly. But there is some analysis that goes into that, right? That it's not a necessarily obvious answer to those questions.
Right. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think we should wrap it up at this point, but it's great to see your smiling faces, and hopefully.
I just had 5 more points to cover, Robert.
Oh, yes. We didn't quite get to the bottom of your outline. Scarlett is behind me, wondering if I need more coffee, I'm sure. Hi, Scarlett. All right, guys. Well, the most important question of the day, what's everybody wearing?
Well, so I got some elk and grizzly bear pants. Yeah.
And I could not bring myself to put on a tie. I was going to, and I said, I'm just not going to do it. And then I have my Hawaiian shorts on here, which are very comfy. And these are my least favorite shorts that I own, according to my wife, who hates these shorts.
Well, I've done something similar today. Got my, I guess they don't have pockets. I got my Hawaiian shorts on too. It's too warm outside for pajama bottoms, but these are pretty cozy. So, all right, guys, great to see you. I will talk to you all soon. If anybody has questions for any of us, please feel free to reach out to us. KootenaiLaw.com. You can find all of our contact information. Bye, guys.